All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Star Wars Mark of Balance. My name is Mark. Hope you guys are all doing well. Sorry I haven't been uploading a lot lately. I've been enjoying the summer, taking some trips. Last week I got sick and the golden voice just wasn't there for you guys, so I couldn't record an episode, but I'm excited to be back. I'm definitely going to ramp up the output over the next couple weeks. And then, of course, when today's subject comes out at the end of next month, I'll be back doing my weekly reviews and analysis. So as you've probably already guessed, I will be talking about the brand new Ahsoka trailer. I assume it to be the final trailer before the release next month. And I think this was the trailer that was shown at Star Wars Celebration at the end of April. And this trailer really impressed me. It brought up a lot of new questions and new conflicts that I wasn't expecting from this show. And I'm so glad they're there. And I think in some aspects, they were things that were pretty obvious that I should have been looking for, but I just didn't. So I'm excited to dive into it with you guys. I'm going to be giving some light spoilers for Rebels because the show is being marketed as the direct follow-up to Rebels. I know Dave Filoni basically said this is Rebels Season 5. So if you haven't seen Rebels, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be talking about some big moments in Rebels that I think are tied to a lot of things we're seeing in this trailer and what we're going to see in the show. So slight spoiler warning for you guys. You still have a month left. I really want everyone to try and watch Rebels before diving into Ahsoka. I think it'll make the characters and the conflict feel so much more impactful. So if you are thinking about starting Rebels and you're apprehensive, reach out to me. I will help you through it. I'll give you some pointers on how to watch Rebels, and you can enjoy it as much as I do. So I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me in this trailer, and I think for a lot of people, was this tension between Ahsoka and Sabine and this implied master and apprentice relationship between them prior to this journey to save Ezra. And while I think this is very surprising, and I am curious how they're going to go about doing this, I do think it is a stroke of genius to insert this plot point into this show. I naively thought that at the end of Rebels, when Ahsoka shows up and takes Sabine with her to go look for Ezra, that there is this unspoken understanding between them that, hey, Ezra told you to look for him. He also told me to look for him. We're both on the same mission. Let's go together. And it was kind of just going to be a very good working relationship. Of course, with this show, I thought, oh, that may be some tension between them on how to find Ezra. But here we see that there's not only going to be that tension of, oh, how are we going to get Ezra? But there's also going to be some baggage from this previous relationship they had in a master and apprentice setting of Ahsoka training Sabine to some degree. And like I said, I think this relationship is genius on so many levels. I think for one, Sabine and Ahsoka, their relationship wasn't explored at all in Rebels. I think there might have been one or two interactions between them, if any. So this is completely new territory, not just for new fans who maybe didn't see Rebels, but also for Rebels fans. So I think it's nice to have a fan base kind of on the same playing field watching this show. I think also just having general tension between characters and having internal conflicts even between the heroes makes the journey to get Ezra that much more emotionally charged. And the final point I want to make on this is in Rebels, my favorite part of Sabine's arc was the Trials of the Darksaber episode where she trains with Kanan to essentially face her past and accept what she did to her own people as they sparred with the Darksaber and his lightsaber. It was very Jedi-like, even though she was a Mandalorian and she didn't have any Force sensitivity. This was a really Jedi-like moment for her. And I think it's an interesting chord to pull on for this show, that she's already been exposed to this Jedi-like way of training. She has this connection with Ezra. It's platonic in the show, but now we're seeing maybe it's even further than that. Maybe she is Force sensitive and that hasn't awakened within her yet. Maybe it's always been suppressed. I think it is a really cool path to go down, and it's unexpected, but in Dave Filoni fashion, it makes a lot of sense, and all of these strings that were left behind in Rebels all make sense to kind of follow, and that's why we love Dave Filoni so much, because he makes the right choices, and he goes down paths that we might have thought were closed, and we actually realized there was so much more to explore there. So I'm really excited for this relationship between the two of them. It seems like there's somewhat of a time skip. It seems like they start with Ahsoka and Hera working together, and then Hera telling her to go back and see Sabine, bury the hatchet, and look for Ezra together because we know you need help. And if that is the story path that this goes down, I just think it makes that epilogue scene in Rebels when Ahsoka shows up so much cooler because, as I said, it seemed like a very straightforward thing, like let's go get Ezra together, but really there's a lot of baggage there between those two characters when they both look at each other and Sabine says, okay, I'm ready to go. We see that they had a relationship beforehand. And I'm going to believe that this was all part of Dave Filoni's plan when he wrote Rebels. He was expecting to one day, hopefully, make a sequel. I don't know if he has ever said this publicly. I feel like I've heard it in an interview where he said, like, I've wanted to do this in live action for a long time. I was waiting for the right moment. So maybe this was the plan all along, and he wanted to keep this open-ended ending in Rebels to hopefully pick up in live action. And now the day's finally here, which I think is really cool because I remember watching the Rebels finale back in 2018, I think it ended, and just being like classic Filoni fashion, something ends in animation, whether it was Clone Wars the first time or Rebels, and it's like, damn it, that's a great ending, and it's still a cliffhanger, which I hate you for, but I also love that it is open-ended so that these stories can be continued if necessary, but if not, you can imagine that they went and they tried to find Ezra together. And I mentioned Hera, so I'll talk about her really quick. I thought she sounded great. I mean, I think the actress really captured what the voice actress did in Rebels very well. I'm actually excited to explore Hera in this general role in the New Republic because it's something that we've only seen in the canon novels. I mean, towards the end of Rebels, you see that she is a leader, obviously, but we never see her in this general like role where she's making all the decisions and also communicating directly with the New Republic because we see my queen, my girl, Mon Mothma, so happy she's here. I know this is not a good time for her. I know a lot of people are very mad at her for the decisions she makes that eventually leads to the First Order rising up, but I am so excited to see her on screen again. I think she won't have a huge role. I'm sure it might just be this scene. Maybe it's in a couple scenes, but how can I not be excited to see Genevieve O'Reilly back on the screen again? But yeah, I'm really hoping that they dive into Hera in this very difficult moment in her life because she has been in war for so long. She grew up on Ryloth, which we know from Clone Wars is always under siege by the Separatists, and then we see in the Bad Batch, the Empire comes and takes over, and she's always been in this fight. So she's at this crossroads where she has a kid now, and she's the general of this fleet. You know, how is she balancing this life? And we see that she wants the wars to end. She's like, I've been in war my whole life. I want this to end. I want to find a way to get away from this life and make a better life for my son in this galaxy. So I think that's a really cool conflict and journey for her to go on while Ahsoka and Sabine go on this journey to find Ezra, because I don't think they'll all be going together. Maybe I'm wrong there, but that seems like the vibe they're going for. Of course, I have to touch on the villain characters because I think I am the most excited to see them in this series. I think obviously, as the internet has said, Thrawn looks fantastic. It is the same voice actor that we had in Rebels. If you've seen any clips from Rebels, you know that Thrawn's voice actor was immaculate. I know he said he's going to try and do a slightly different performance for live action because it is a different medium. But oh my God, I cannot wait to hear his first words on screen. I hope they use his Kevin Kiner organ score. It's like this sinister, very gothic. I'm so excited. I hope they use it. I know Kevin Kiner is also scoring the series, which so excited for him because he's done such great work with Clone Wars, Rebels, Bad Batch. I'm excited to see what he does in live action with the Ahsoka theme that he created for Clone Wars and the Thrawn theme. So we haven't heard anything from Thrawn, which I think is perfect. Leave it for the show. Don't give that away. But I cannot wait to hear those first words from him. And I hope he lives up to the hype because in Rebels, I don't think he lived up to the name just yet because Rebels made it difficult for him to do that. But I'm hoping in this series we see that full-on Thrawn that we know from the books. And finally, we have like the main antagonists of this series, and that's Baylon and Shin, this Master Apprentice Dark Jedi duo that we still don't know too much about, but we get a couple more hints in this trailer. And of course, rest in peace to Ray Stevenson. I absolutely love what we heard in this trailer from him. He's extremely imposing in this trailer. I love every line of dialogue that he gives. "We are not Jedi," stabs the guy through the chest. He talks about how war is a constant and that they're on the search for power. And I think this is an interesting window into his backstory. As we hear later in the trailer, he does say that he knew Anakin, that he was aware of Ahsoka, and that Anakin always spoke very highly of her. Of course, as the Darth Vader breathing was in the background, that was a nice touch. But that makes me think that Ray Stevenson was a Jedi Master, but he became disillusioned with the Jedi Order, and he might fall into that category of Jedi who became much more militaristic. The war itself changed him. He was an upstanding Jedi, but he quickly saw that the Jedi Order had to change, and he's like, no, the war has to continue. We have to win this war. And eventually it seemed like the Republic was going to fall, and he had already been corrupted by this lust for power and obsession with war. So I think Ray Stevenson's final performance is going to be something special. I really enjoyed what I saw here in the trailer. And he does drag along this unfortunate Padawan, Shin, who I think is going to be the sleeper character of the series. I'm really excited to see what she does. The way the actress talked about her in Star Wars Celebration made me very excited for what she was bringing to the role. And it seems like they're trying to create this foil-like relationship between Sabine and Shin and Ahsoka and Rey. Baylon, sorry. But I'm excited to see that dynamic between these characters. And I know Shin has kind of been portrayed in all of these trailers as this rageful, angry, obsessive character, and it makes her look very one-note. But I do think Filoni, at his best, will go deeper. I think there's going to be layers to her. Where does she fit into all of this? How young was she when Baylon decided to take her under her wing? Where does she come from? Was she a Padawan? Was she a Force-sensitive child that Baylon took away from her family and fed her this lie of who she is and what she was meant to be? And she's disillusioned by Baylon, and this whole arc for her is breaking away from that. I think there's a lot of cool things that they can do with her, so I'm really excited. I think she's going to be the sleeper of the series. So as you can tell, I am excited for the villains. I know the trailers make them seem pretty one-note. Oh, we want power, we want war, but I think we're going to go a bit deeper with them, and I'm really excited, obviously, for Thrawn in live action. I think the final thing I want to discuss from this trailer is we finally get to hear Ezra talk in live action. I thought the actor did a great job of capturing Ezra's aura, and I'm excited to see when he actually comes into the fold, if he's a ghost we chase throughout the season, and then in the finale we finally get to him, or is the journey to him just the first half of the season, and then the rest of it is Thrawn and thwarting their plans, which we don't know really what their plans are. And during this scene with Ezra, we get a really nice parallel of Sabine cutting her hair, similar to what Kanan did in Rebels when he cuts his hair. I talked about it in my Japanese influences of Star Wars all the way back in the day when Visions was first cutting out, that hair cutting was a huge tradition in Japanese culture and kind of this changing of a person. And I know that's kind of intuitive when you watch shows or movies, but I think it is really cool that there is this cultural aspect to it. I know the best example I know is Zuko in Avatar The Last Airbender when he cuts off his ponytail, and that's when he finally goes through a huge character change. So those are some of my thoughts on the Ahsoka trailer. As with every Star Wars trailer, there's always things in here that are meant to misdirect, and there's clever editing, so take everything with a grain of salt. Do we really believe that Ahsoka walked away from Sabine like she did from Anakin? Did she really make that same mistake again? Based on the dialogue here, it sounds like she did, but I think there was some editing there to make it seem like, oh, Ahsoka walked away from Sabine. She gave up on her student like she gave up on her master. Maybe she did, maybe she didn't. Again, clever editing. But we won't know until we see it next month. There was a lot of Anakin in this trailer, by the way. We had the Baylon mention. We had a Darth Vader breathing. We had Ahsoka mention Anakin and not finishing her training with him. So maybe, I think there's a lot of rumors that are saying Hayden is going to be in this. That would be pretty incredible. Of course, deep down, I wish there were no rumors, so it would be a complete surprise if he does end up in the show. But regardless, this was a fantastic trailer. It got me much more excited for the series. Of course, I was excited already, but I really like the portrayals of all of these characters in their live-action form. This was the first trailer we really got a lot of dialogue for all of them. So I think they all did fantastic jobs. I think the budget and the feeling and the scale of the show definitely feels a lot better than the last trailer. It seems like there's a lot more poured into this. Again, the volume is somewhat noticeable at this point. I'm hoping in the final cut that it's able to seamlessly blend in, but there's definitely some shots in here where I'm like, that's definitely like a volume stage. So hoping that gets a little bit more polished by the end next month. But overall, I think the production value looks fantastic for the show. There's so much riding on this show. If this show isn't a banger, Star Wars TV is going to be in a very interesting situation outside of Andor. So hoping they land the plane here. I know Dave Filoni has been waiting to do this. I trust him. He is fully in control of this, and I don't think he would steer these characters wrong. But that's all I got for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts on the Ahsoka trailer. Follow me on Instagram. DM me on Instagram at @star_wars_mark of balance. Leave a rating and review for the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. I really appreciate it. Spread the word about the podcast to your friends. That's the best way to market this podcast is through word of mouth. So I really appreciate if you've ever told any of your friends to check out this podcast. It means the world. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and may the Force be with you. Peace.